org. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio
89.5 WSKB.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Beat Radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB. The music in the background was composed by Alexander Savronsky for a production of Tony Kushner's play Homebody. And Alex will be here on the second half of the program. We're going to talk about music and theater and all kinds of good stuff. On the first half of the program today, we'll be chatting with Daniel Elihu Kramer, who's the artistic director of the Chester Theater. Chester has announced its 30th anniversary season, and it has 4 New England premieres. That's 4 out of 4 shows. And before we begin chatting with Daniel, a couple of news items. First of all, Berkshire Theater Group announced its 91st season yesterday. It's online at berkshiretheatergroup.org. Some really interesting shows up and coming, and you'll be able to read a preview of it later today in the Westfield News. And we had Kevin Rhodes, the maestro of the Springfield Symphony, on a couple of weeks ago, talking about the upcoming performance next weekend with Rachel Barton Pine. Rachel Barton Pine has been taken ill and will not be performing, and the violinist William Hagen will be substituting. For information on that, you can contact the Springfield Symphony at springfieldsymphony.org. Now, moving on to Chester Theater. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Mark. Great to be with you.
Great to be with you, too. I want to talk about the 4 shows that you're bringing in this season as part of the 30th anniversary. But there was a news item last week about the fact that Chester is commissioning a brand new play, which may appear next season. So can you tell me about that? Because that's kind of unique for a theater company to do.
We're very excited about it. Thanks for asking about it. Yeah, this is the beginning of a program that I hope will lead to more work. But we have received a gift, a really lovely gift from a pair of longtime patrons of the theater. And that gift is going to allow for a lot of things. But one of the things it's going to allow us to do is to commission this new play, see it through from the very beginning stages all the way through development, all the way till it reaches our main stage to share with our audiences. So Fran Henry and Walter Korczak are the patrons who made this wonderful gift and allowed us to commission the playwright, Darcy Bruce. And we're just at the beginning of what I think is going to be a really exciting process.
Can you explain what a commission is? I mean, I know that some theater companies work with new plays, and the new play gets premiered there, like Hartford Stage did last month with The Engagement Party. But when you commission a play, that means the play is not written yet. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. That at the moment that we all agree, yes, we're going to do this thing, there is no play that exists. And we say, a theater says, in this case, we say to Darcy, we would love to essentially pay you to write a play. And we want to support that process from beginning to end through giving you time to do stuff, through giving you development work with actors and directors in a space once you're ready for that, through readings, all the way through to the commitment that we've made that this play will end up on our main stage.
Now,
so one of the wonderful... Yeah. Sorry, go on, Mark.
I was going to say, sight unseen. Did she present to you an idea that she had for a play, or are you just saying that you've seen this playwright's work and she will come up with something?
A couple of things, actually. One is that, of course, we've read her work and we have seen her work, and we think she's a wonderful playwright, writes very beautifully. great imagination, vivid language, a great sense of human decency in the work. But the other is that Fran and Walter, who came to us, had an idea not for a play in terms of what the story should be, but about an issue that they were hoping somebody could make art from. And what happened was that they came to us with that thought and the thought of this gift and said, do you have an idea of a playwright you might want to turn to for this project? So we really were, in a sense, making a marriage between them and Darcy. And that was exciting for us as a theater that is always working to bring our audience and our artists together. This felt like a wonderful opportunity to do that.
So you have an issue for discussion, but have you put any parameters when you commission a play? Do you say, like, it has to be 2 characters or 2 acts, or it has to be this or has to be that? Or do you just say to the playwright, sit down and write something?
It's really closer to the second of those things, actually. What we're really doing is trusting in the imagination of the playwright. There are certain constraints. You know, you've been to Chester plenty of times. For your listeners who have, the chances that it's going to be a 15-person musical are probably low. So we've certainly said, please write a play in keeping with the work that we do here in terms of scope and nature. But beyond that, we really are saying we want to see where your imagination can take you.
And then the playwright will write a script or a draft of a script, and you'll do some readings of it, and so that you can see how it plays out with actors and maybe a workshop and stuff like that before it comes to a full production.
That's exactly right. And one of the wonderful things that the gift allows us to do is to fund all of that without having to pull it from our usual operating budget, and to say, look, if what we need is a week in New York with a bunch of actors and a director, great. If the playwright has a trip that she needs to do for research, great. And that all of that is able to be supported through this gift in addition to a commission fee to the playwright.
Now, once the play is written and you decide you put it onto next season's roster and it gets performed, let's say that maybe it'll be tweaked a little bit after the performance run, but there's interest in taking it to Broadway or to London or something like that. Does Chester remain involved in it in its future, or is this just to put it on the stage at Chester?
For starters, it's to bring it to the stage at Chester. It's certainly our hope that depending on what the next life of the play is, Chester would continue to have some involvement. I don't know if you saw, there was a recent article about Hartford Stage and ways that one of the things that's contributed to their growth has been the success of plays that were generated at that theater that have gone on elsewhere. So certainly that would be lovely. But our first concern is for this production, for our audience here in Chester.
And this is not a unique situation. Other theaters do this, but it's unique to Chester.
Yeah, it's a first for us to commission a play that is intended to be on our main stage. Some years back, the theater commissioned somebody to write a traveling play for high school students about bullying. But this will be the first opportunity to really commission a play, see it through from beginning to end, and have it come to our audience on the main stage. And I'm very excited about it.
I think it's great. I'm looking forward to learning what it's about and watching it from beginning to its actual performance time. But you've got 4 premieres coming in the meanwhile. You want to talk a little bit about some of the shows up and coming at Chester?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, this is our 30th season, and our opening show is a show that was chosen for a bunch of reasons, but in part we think is something of a celebration of how we began. So at the beginning, a wonderful Irish director and actor named Vincent Dowling, who had been at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin and worked a great deal in this country, began Chester Theatre Company, which was then the Miniature Theatre of Chester. And we're starting with an Irish play, in part as a nod to Vincent Dowling, a wonderful play called The Night Alive by Conor McPherson, who's a marvelous playwright. And this is actually a play where, as I started to look around, I was shocked that we were the New England premiere because he's a fairly big deal playwright. It was a very, highly applauded play in New York. And I looked around and I said, wait, nobody's done it here at all? So to my shock, no. So Night Alive, which is both a wonderful script, play about a couple of guys who are down and out in Dublin, and then a cast of characters that starts to grow up around them. We've also been able to put together a really terrific cast for this one, which includes a bunch of actors whom you and others have seen at Chester in the past, including Joel Ripka, who has won a couple of Berkshire Theater Awards over the last couple of years with us, James Barry, who works with us and at other theaters in the area. They were in the Aliens Theater last year, which won a Berkshire Theater Award, and a bunch of other really wonderful actors who were really excited to put together. And I'm also excited because I get to direct them all again, because I'll be directing that opening show. So that's The Night Alive, starting June 20th.
We should tell people all the information on the plays and how to get tickets and where Chester Theater is, etc., is on the website at chestertheater.org. So make sure you visit the website after this program or during, if you like.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned James Barry. Just want to say that he's part of Berkshire Theater Group's upcoming season, which you'll want to go check out as well.
Absolutely. He'll be directing for them this summer.
Right. He's doing the musical Working, which is kind of a fun show. I'm looking forward to that.
Likewise.
So, second show of the four at Chester.
The second show of the four is one that I think is going to be really enjoyable. It's a play called Now, Circa Then. It's about two young people in New York, a young man and a young woman. And they both have jobs as reenactors at a tenement museum. So we initially meet them not as themselves, but as reenactors playing the roles of two 19th century immigrants to New York. Then the young man and the young woman here in the present begin to develop a relationship, and that relationship begins to creep into their reenactments. So that as we meet their 19th century immigrant counterparts, they go through the same, or at least related, roller coaster of relationship that our contemporary characters are going through. It's by a terrific playwright named Carly Mensch, and she has gone on in the couple of years since that play, among other things, to write and run a television show called Glow, which is about women wrestlers. And she has a really terrific sense of humor. And at the same time, it becomes, in a sneaky way, sort of a play about immigrants and immigration and the immigrant experience in this country.
And what follows that?
So I will come back. I'm going to skip for a moment the fact that we have a special event in the middle of the season, as we did last summer. But let me skip that for a moment, go on to the third play.
Okay.
The third play is a play that I think is really important for us. It's a play called On the Exhale. And it is a play that engages with, I think, if we're honest, we're going to call it American epidemic, which is shootings and school shootings. And it is a play that begins from that situation but goes enormously unexpected places. It's not preaching. It's not just about saying, isn't this terrible, or aren't these people wrong, or aren't those people wrong? But at the same time follows one woman's journey through this issue in a very surprising and powerful way. And it's our hope that this will also be an opportunity for us to launch a lot of conversations around an issue that I think people have very strong feelings about, and for good reason.
And actually, last summer, there was a play at Berkshire Theater Group called Church and State, which also dealt with gun violence. And I found it very interesting that they had talkbacks after the performances. And theater has a powerful way of getting people to look at a national situation or something that they hear on the news every day and they've just shuttered out of their existence and bring it back into focus. And will you be doing talkbacks and conversations? Because plays like this really call out for that.
You're absolutely right, and we certainly will. So we will have, over the course of 2 weeks, we will have 7 performances that are followed by some kind of conversation, a range of different kinds. We'll have panel discussions. We'll have conversations with the artists involved. I'll lead audience conversations. And I think that we're all looking for places to try to work together to understand what's happening, what we feel our responsibilities are about what's happening, and I think that these conversations are vital. And I think, as you discussed with Church and State last year or with On the Exhale at Chester this coming summer, theater's ability to create a place where we can share that experience together is powerful.
And before I want to talk about the special event, but what's the fourth show on the docket for the summer?
So the fourth show is a beautiful play called Curve of Departure. It's by a playwright, Rachel Bonds, who has not had much work done in this area. And it's about 3 generations of a family coming together to mourn/celebrate the loss of a member of that family. And they're a fascinating family, a Jewish grandfather, an African-American mother, her son, the son's partner, and all set in the somewhat cramped confines of a motel room in New Mexico. And a surprisingly funny play. We also have the wonderful opportunity with this play. A couple of the cast members in it are worth noting. Paul Pontrelli, who was part of our production of The Aliens that won an award last year, and was also in our production of I and You a couple of years ago that Kristen Van Ginhoven directed, is in it. And also an actor who was just moving to our area, a wonderful actor named Ray Burke, who was a longtime company member both in Minneapolis at the Guthrie Theater, in San Francisco at American Conservatory Theater, longtime television and film actor. Was recently acting with the wonderful English actor Mark Rylance in his production of Nice Fish, both in New York and London. And the wonderful news for us is that Ray and his wife Candace are moving to the area to be nearer their granddaughter. And I was lucky enough to say, well, if you're going to be here, let me tell you about Chester Theater Company. So I think that's a play that is in equal parts funny and moving, and people are going to really enjoy the experience of.
But how long did it take you to put together this season? Because you've got some really exciting works. Are these things you thought about years ago or things that cropped up recently?
They're a mix. It's interesting you say that. One of the things that we're trying to do is start to work on a longer horizon rather than each September saying, oof, we made it through the summer. Oh, my gosh, what are we going to do next year? Trying also to have some things that we know are coming. So an example of that actually would be the work that we're doing with Darcy on this commission that we know is coming. On the Exhale is certainly a play that we had thought about in previous years, and honestly, at some point last summer, and this is terrible. Here's a terrible fact. I don't remember the specific one. There was a shooting at some point. And we all looked at each other in the office and we thought, all right, that's it. We have to do On the Exhale next year. And we did a thing I had never done before, which is in the middle of one summer, I went ahead and got the rights to do a play for the next summer. So that was one that we knew very early. And The Night Alive is also a play we had considered for last summer. And there's this sort of funny geometry of putting a season together. And in the end, there wasn't a slot for it. So we were really excited to be able to bring it into this summer season. The other two, Curve of Departure and Now Circa Then, were plays I didn't even know till I started to sit down to reading this past fall.
Daniel, we're going to talk more about the season and your special event, but we need to take a quick break to acknowledge the underwriters of programming like Artsbeat Radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB. We're broadcasting live today from the campus of Westfield State University. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll be right back.
One of our underwriters here at WSKB's Community Radio is Carson Center for Health and Human Services, a nonprofit organization located at 20 Broad Street in Westfield. They provided behavioral health and rehabilitation services in communities throughout Western Massachusetts since 1963. There are services for children, adolescents, adults, families, and couples. You can find them on the web at carsoncenter.org or at 413-572-4132.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646. Discussions of local politics, events, happenings, and miscellany potpourri. Ken's Den, Tuesday, 8 to 10.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Welcome back to Arts Beat Radio, everyone. In the second half of our program, we'll be chatting with the composer, musician, actor Alexander Savronsky. And next week on Arts Beat Radio, the entire hour will be devoted to the big broadcast at Mount Holyoke, which is the recreation of a 1940s swing big band live radio broadcast featuring music of the era. Brian Lapis from WWLP TV 22 plays MC Fred Kelly, and Zoe Darrow, a recent alum of Mount Holyoke who's made it on the circuit as a Celtic fiddler. She's from Blandford. She'll be joining the big broadcast this year to do some 1940s country swing. That's next week on Arts Beat Radio. But right now we're talking with Daniel Elihu Kramer, the artistic director of the Chester Theater. And I've got to admit that I've become a big fan of Chester Theater over the last couple of years because I've had an opportunity to experience plays that just aren't being done anywhere else by some important voices, playwrights and issues and all that. And I think Daniel has brought a lot of that to the area. So you've got these 4 New England premieres and a special event. And last year's special event was a unique play that the actors didn't get to see the script until they walked on the stage. So what have you done to outdo it this year?
Well, I'm not sure it would be possible to outdo it, but what we've decided to do is to say what we realized was that, in a sense, what we had made in the middle of our summer was almost our own little fringe event, right, where we said, we're going to now get a little more experimental. We're going to be even more playful about what kind of theater do we do, and try to give audiences an experience that they really can't get and don't normally get going to the theater. So we sat down to think, what could that be this summer? And what we're doing is we're collaborating with a wonderful artist named John Bechtold. And what John does is he creates what are called immersive pieces. That is, pieces where the audience becomes part of the action, where the audience might travel around or in one way or another be involved with the event from beginning to end. Folks may have heard of, in New York, there's a show called Sleep No More that is an example of this. And John creates pieces like that, and he's made them a couple of different places. He made one for the Emily Dickinson Museum that was revived this past year. And he's going to be creating a piece for us that is specific to Chester Theater Company. And so in the middle of the summer, between our second and our third shows, there will be a chance for folks to come to the theater and have a really unique hour-long experience where they are part of an event in a way that they have never been at a theater before. I would tell you the title of it, but I was actually on the phone with John yesterday, and we are still brainstorming titles for it because the piece is being made brand new for us. So that's something I'm very excited about, and folks will come to the theater and travel around through the space and become a part of things. And I think people are going to remember this one.
Wasn't there a show sort of on that concept in New York? I think it was called Tamara, where you went to a house that was inhabited by Russian nobility, and you got fed a meal during the course of it while these nobility acted out things, and you were actually a dinner guest as they were imploding, kind of thing?
That absolutely was a show. And ours, first off, with apologies, we won't be feeding you.
Oh.
And I'm sorry. And the other difference I would say between that show and ours is you will have a more pivotal role in this one than you did in that. And I'm not sure I should say more than that, but you should expect to have an important role if you come, yet you will not necessarily have to perform in front of others. So it's a very tricky situation, but I think it's going to be deeply enjoyable. I think it's going to be an hour of real pleasure and a very different experience for folks. So we're continuing this sort of pattern of doing a thing in the middle of the summer that is completely unexpected.
I'm looking forward to that. You mentioned that James Barry and Joel Ripka, who are two actors that people have seen, and Paul Pontrelli, the three of them were in Aliens last year, which Westfield News Group said was one of the best ensemble performances. But you also have somebody joining you this year as an associate who is well known in theaters in the area. And I always like talking about her work because I think she's one of the most exciting theatrical presences around, and that's Tara Franklin.
I'm so excited about this, Mark. I'm so glad you mentioned it. So we will at some point do a big announcement about this, but of course you already know this is happening. So Tara Franklin, who audiences in the area know from acting with us, from acting with Berkshire Theater Group, from really a range of wonderful performances, and also has worked a great deal in New York and elsewhere, is joining us as both Associate Artistic Director and as our Director of Education. And I'm enormously pleased that she's going to come partner with us and become part of the company. She, like so many of the artists we work with, is somebody we value, and because she and James Barry, to whom she's married, now live in the Berkshire area, there was an opportunity for us to really make her part of staff and part of our day-to-day life. And I'm beyond thrilled that Tara is joining us and is going to be a day-to-day presence for us at Chester Theater Company. She'll be involved in everything from planning seasons to going on some of our theater trips alongside me, to continuing to be an artist who works on our stages, to directing our intern program and making sure that those interns have a really wonderful educational experience. So I think this is going to be a great addition for the theater, and I'm really grateful that Tara wanted to come be a part of it.
And she's directing one of the 4 productions this year, correct?
She is, although we are still playing. She is involved in that production, and you catch me on a day where we're a little back and forth about whether she's directing it or acting in it. So ask me again in a week, and I might have a more firm answer for you, Mark.
As far as I'm concerned, she could read the yellow pages and turn it into a great theatrical event. And
she's a marvelous actor.
Our radio audiences know her because I've interviewed her a couple of times for her performances at Berkshire Theater. But I had an hour special last fall with James Barry and Tara Franklin on the same show. And they just talked about their lives and how it was possible to live and work in the arts and the creative economy here in Western Mass. So I think the fact that she's coming to work at Chester is a great thing because it gives our area one more talented person who's able to work here and not have to go to New York or Washington or L.A. to live and work.
That's exactly right, and I'm thrilled that that's going on. I also am lucky enough to have her as a colleague. I teach at Smith College, and we've been fortunate enough that Tara comes there and teaches a beginning acting class for our students as well. And you will not be surprised to know that she is an amazing acting teacher, too.
Well, we've only got less than a minute here, Daniel, but I got a brochure in the mail the other day, and it said that you're directing Shakespeare at Smith this spring. So give us a little heads up on that.
Well, thank you so much for asking. I was going to see if I could sneak that in. I'm going to have the pleasure this spring of directing a production of As You Like It with Smith students, and we have a cast of 15 women who will be in it. If you don't know the play, for anybody who's listening, one of the wonderful things about the play is that there is a young woman who pretends to be a boy who's pretending to be a young woman. So it is a very mixed-up play about gender to begin with, and I think that we're going to have a lot of fun with our all-women cast approaching this play, which is really a delightful, delightful comedy with one of Shakespeare's great heroines, Rosalind. And we actually have a local actor who's a Smith student, Hero Hendrick Baker, who will be playing Rosalind, and I'm so excited, and I think it's going to be a real treat.
Daniel, thanks for joining us this morning. We've been talking with Daniel Elihu Kramer from the Chester Theater Company. I'm hoping this summer we can bring Arts Beat Radio up to Chester and do a radio broadcast from Chester. We've been up in the Berkshires before, and we've been talking about how great it would be to be part of the 30th anniversary season and actually sit up there and talk with a lot of the people who are involved. So thanks for joining us, and I will see you as soon as the snows melt.
Thank you, Mark.
We are going to take another break to acknowledge our underwriters. When we're back, we'll be chatting with Alexander Savronsky. This is Arts Beat Radio. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here.
Underwriting for WSKB's community radio programming is brought to you in part by R. Levesque Associates. They are offering landscape architecture, civil engineering, environmental permitting, and land surveying. RLA is a second-generation company devoted to excellence in the planning and design of outdoor spaces. On the web at rlaland.com or at 40 School Street in Westfield.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Discussions of local politics, events, happenings, and miscellany potpourri. That's what you'll find on Ken's Den, Tuesdays from 8 till 10.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Welcome back to Arts Beat Radio, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer this morning. We're broadcasting live from studios at Westfield State University. Our guest for the second half hour, somebody I've had on the radio before whom I love chatting with. It's Alexander Savronsky. He's a composer, he's an actor, he's a music director, he's a sound designer, and he's all over the map when it comes to doing great productions. He's on tour right now in the play Indecent. He's taking a quick break to do the sound design for the 10 by 10 New Play Festival. And I've got to welcome him and say congratulations, because he is a nominee for a Helen Hayes Award for his music direction of Indecent. And the Helen Hayes Awards are Washington, D.C.'s version of the Tonys. So congratulations and good morning.
Oh, thank you so very much. Good morning to you as well.
Is it nice to be home in Western Mass for a couple of days?
Oh, it is so nice to be home. My wife and I adopted a puppy about a week and a half or so before I left for Washington, D.C. for the first leg of that Indecent production. So I haven't been home much, so it's nice to be home with not only to see my wife, but also to play with our new puppy. So it's great.
So in between reconnecting with the wife and getting to know the dog better, you're involved in the 10 by 10 New Play Festival doing the sound design.
I am.
And
yeah.
I found out that your wife is doing the props for it.
Yeah. Actually, she and I met many years ago in New York and wound up since then working on a lot of shows together. But these days, it's a rare occurrence that we're able to do shows together, apart from when we both get the opportunity to work at Barrington Stage, because that's right near where we live, and my wife is the props master there, and when I get to work there, she's usually involved in the production in some capacity. So it's a nice little perk that we get to, if we don't get to see each other very often during the day, at least we get to see each other in the office, so to speak.
So how long have you had to do the sound for the 10 by 10?
Well, the scripts were chosen a number of weeks ago, maybe more like a month or two ago, and this is my third year doing the sound for the 10 by 10 festival, and basically all it really entails is just creating the required sounds and atmospheric effects that each of the short 10 plays require, and then also finding music that links them all together or allows the audience energy to kind of stay up as the evening progresses, and if you do scene shifts, that kind of thing. So the workload is one that's pretty repetitive in terms of like each year it's the same kind of format of 10 plays, 10 short plays. So I've kind of gotten used to it, this being my third year. So this year it took me maybe about a week and a half or so to get all this up and running. So it's really a lot of fun. We had our first public performance last night. So if anyone's interested, I think it runs through the first or second week of March. I remember correctly.
It does,
but,
and I'm actually going to see it on Sunday afternoon. Is when they're letting the press come.
That's our opening.
Of the 10 playlets, and we actually I'll backtrack here. Matthew Penn, who is one of the co-directors of it, was our guest last week, and he brought your name up.
I listened.
Yeah, he brought your name up because the two of you had done Mother of the Maid together, not only at Shakespeare and Company, but off Broadway. So, of the 10, are there any of the playlets that really attracted your attention? Are any that are more compelling at this point? I
think they're all compelling for different reasons. I mean, I think that there's some of them that are very light and silly and comic. I always like those. I mean, for a short play, I really enjoy when it goes weird and comic and farcical. I like that. But I'm surprised a lot of them this year have are picking out some of the more interesting and more serious issues that our country's been dealing with. And I think the play festival is a bit more nuanced this year than it has, at least in the last couple of years that I've been involved. So I think there's definitely a large variety. Whereas in past years, each one's been more of a comedy with maybe like one more serious piece. Now there's a little bit more of a balance in there.
Now, when you were at Barrington Stage last was for the Glass Menagerie, and you composed the score for that, which was played live by a violist. Are you composing music for the 10 by 10, or are you doing sound effects and finding mood music that fits the plays?
Yeah, it's much more the finding of the mood music. I mean, the nice thing about being having the skill set that I do is that, like, if one of the directors said, we're not finding what we really want out of, popular music or whatever it may be, like, I'd really love this certain type of feel, but I could just whip that up. I could write something and make that happen. But generally, with this year's work, we haven't had that come up. But I'm certainly not opposed to composing something if that is what the play or the director requires. But this year, it doesn't seem like that's in the cards for what's necessary.
What's it been like touring in Indecent? I know the show opened at Arena Stage in Washington, where you got nominated for the Hayes Award, but you've played in Kansas City, and there's still another tour stop to go. Has it been interesting being out on tour with a show?
Yeah, it's been really nice. I mean, the production, it's a co-production between Arena, Kansas City Rep, and Baltimore Center Stage, which is our next stop, which we'll be playing at February 28th through March 31st at Baltimore Center Stage. That's the last time we'll be doing this production of Indecent, and after that it goes the way of all theater pieces, up into the wind. But it's been really amazing, actually, because generally, especially in the most recent political climate, quite frankly, I've found a lot of frustration with the fact that my lot has been to tell a lot of stories in the dark to people that generally agree with me. I find that generally the type of people that are coming to see the shows that I'm doing are people that already kind of agree with the message of the show. And Indecent has been a really interesting experience in that, like, unlike doing Shakespeare or a musical or an old play like The Glass Menagerie, when people come to see Indecent, most people don't even know what it's about. And because it's a new play and the title doesn't give anything away. So unless people are doing a lot of research to figure out what they're about to see, most people are walking into the theater kind of blind. And the play itself, I think, is incredibly timely, very political. It deals with immigration and deals with the power of theater and censorship and LGBTQ issues. All of these things I'm very, very, very passionate about, and feel like they're really important issues to talk about, especially now. And it's been really nice to do this play and have that message, have this topic be presented to people that don't necessarily know it's coming. And I think the experience of our audiences seeing this play has been, I think, a lot more of a roller coaster for them because they didn't know what to expect. And that's a really exciting thing to be part of.
Now, it's a play that's very highly regarded. It's won a whole bunch of prizes. Paula Vogel is a playwright that people, once they see a work that she's done, they come back for more of her work.
Oh, yeah.
Did it play differently to audiences like in Washington than it did in Kansas City?
Not as much as I could tell. I mean, honestly, the only difference that I personally felt was there seemed to be a larger Jewish population in the Washington, D.C. area that came to the show. And there's a lot of Yiddish in the play and Yiddish jokes that, get translated to English a moment later. So people will hear certain words in Washington and they would laugh at them before they were translated. So you knew that there were people in the audience that spoke the language or could recognize certain things here and there. And in Kansas City, a little bit less so. But we have had a lot of audiences where local congregations of different Jewish organizations and things like that will come into the shows, and that's been really lovely. We've had some nice talkbacks with those groups. So it's been a lot of really lovely blend of community outreach and doing theater for just the general public as well.
Now, I know it's a co-production between 3 theaters, but did the company stay the same between this 3 productions and the sets and move from city to city, or
absolutely everything is But when people were hired for this, all the design team, the choreographer, everyone that's got a lead artistic role, and every one of their people's assistants all stayed for the whole of the 3 productions, which is a 6-month contract, which is rare for regional theater. I mean, most regional theaters will run 4 to 6 weeks and you're done. And this one, we've got 6 weeks in Washington, D.C., and then I think it was 4 or 5 weeks in Kansas City, and then another 5 weeks in Baltimore. So a co-production is not unheard of, but a 3-theater co-production is pretty rare. So for this one, we were lucky enough that all the cast and all the creative teams were all part of it. And the set was built in D.C. and then traveled with us. And it's really cool because each theater is very different. So they had to think ahead and think about how the set would work in different spaces. And it's not just a set that you just put up and you act in it. There's moving parts. There's these moving beams that come flying in, and there's a lot to it. There's also some special effects that I won't give away for people that don't know the play. But there's a very iconic special effect at the end of the play that is written into the script. So there are some technical requirements. So to make that work was a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. But I got to say they did it very admirably and very successfully.
And before you went off to do Indecent, you had Mother of the Maid, which started at Shakespeare and Company, and then moved off Broadway. And I if I'm correct, the run of it got extended because of the acclaim for it. What happens to that show now? Is that got a future somewhere else, or?
Oh God, I hope so. I mean, it's an amazing piece of theater. I think it's a really beautiful story. I mean, it's a contemporary play about the mother of Joan of Arc that features a leading role for an older woman, and that's not a normal occurrence in American theater. A lot of this is, as I'm sure everyone's aware, hopefully, is populated by a lot of older white guys, and it's really nice to see a play by Jane Anderson, who wrote, among other things, the screenplays for Olive Kittredge and The Wife, a very highly regarded playwright and screenwriter. So she wrote the play, and Glenn Close starred in it, and it's lovely to see such really talented women being having such an incredible hand at the work. Not that it's a rarity by any means, but it's certainly less frequent than I think I'd like to see in American theater, especially. So I hope that the play has a life. I hope that the play continues. I'm not entirely sure what I guess stage the script is at. I would assume at some point that the script will be published, and that the theaters can do it. But I'm not sure. That really depends on the playwright and if they want to continue making revisions or changes and things like that. But I don't know. I think it's one of those things that, if some producer with a lot of money out there saw it and said, "Hey, I want to bring this to, somewhere else in the world or somewhere else in their community, or wherever it may be," it's totally possible. But as of now, I don't know anything is set in stone.
Glenn Close was on, I believe it was Stephen Colbert the other night, and she's nominated for an Oscar, and she was talking about the fact that at her age now there are so many opportunities for good material to come along, and this wasn't the case for women 30 years ago or 40 years ago. So
that's great.
And she felt that, this was a play that just opened up a lot of opportunities. She spoke very highly of it. And then Matthew Penn spoke highly of it too, and highly of you when we chatted last week. So I would assume for you it was a great experience.
Yeah, I had a wonderful time. Matt and I have been working together for a number of years now. We've done probably close to a dozen productions, I'd say, together over the years, and continue to work together with a really strong working relationship. Sometimes you just find, an artist, a fellow artist that speaks the same language as you, and you kind of both hear things the same way or kind of understand storytelling the same way, and it makes collaboration not only more fun, but also easier and faster, that you can kind of go, I think I know what you want here, and you just go. And when you find a partner like that, you kind of stick with it. So Matt and I have been lucky enough to be able to travel around a lot and get to work together a bunch. The play is outstanding. For anyone that didn't get to see it, I'm very, very proud to say that the play was actually recorded and archived at Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts in their library. So if you missed the show, you can go to Lincoln Center in New York City, the Performing Arts Library, and book an appointment and go take a watch. They have a little viewing room for people. All you need is a library card, and you can sit down and watch the play. It's pretty outstanding. But it was a really, really wonderful experience.
What's next on the docket for you after? You're going to do 10 by 10, then go off to Baltimore, and then what happens to Alexander Savronsky after that?
Well, at present, 10 by 10 opens this weekend. I'll see you at the opening. Looking forward to it. And then I have a little bit of work in Boston, and then I'm running away to Baltimore, and then hopefully coming home for a little bit. Hopefully going to be back here for a bit. My wife's actually going to be working at the Public Theater on doing props, same as she's doing for 10 by 10. She's going to be doing some props work for a new play at the Public that they actually just announced the casting for yesterday. It's a new play called Socrates, and she'll be doing work for that. So while she's in New York doing that, I'll be hopefully home with the dog, spending a bit of time. And then it looks like this summer I'm probably going to be doing some work in Seattle, at Seattle Rep, doing another production of Indecent, this time with the original score instead of my own score that I got to write for this production. So that'll be a fun experience to kind of take someone else's music and look at the whole play through a different lens,
Who wrote the score to the original?
The original score was written by Lisa Gutkin and Aaron Halva. Lisa Gutkin is a Grammy Award-winning klezmer violinist and composer and songwriter. And Aaron Halva is a tremendously talented multi-instrumentalist and theater composer. They're both based in the Northeast, I think, and they started working together on Indecent, doing the music, creating the score for it years and years and years in the making. So when the show came to Broadway, their score they played it live on stage along with another musician who played clarinet. And it's the only play that I know of that now the score is attached to it in the same way it would be a musical. So if you're going to do Indecent, you have to use their original score. The production that I'm doing right now, that went to D.C. and Kansas City and Baltimore, that one we actually had a special agreement because we were the first regional theater to be granted the rights to do the play. So we were granted the right to do it with a new original score that I wrote. But for better or for worse, the original score from Broadway is the one that is now locked in for every future production. So,
now
as it turned out, I'll be the only composer that will ever be able to have a chance to write a new score for the play.
Yeah. Now you wrote the score for The Cake, which premiered at Barrington Stage. Now it's either opened or in previews in New York, but your score didn't go with it, did it?
No, that's completely separate productions. The set design, costumes, the casting, the director, everything is completely different. It's as if you saw a production of Hamlet in one theater and then went to another production of Hamlet in another theater. So even though it's the same play, it's a completely different production and cast and design and approach and everything. I think that Deborah Jo Rupp, who is our leading lady in that production, she's actually going to be reprising that same role in this new production. But she is the only link between the two. It's just a wonderful chance that it's a role that she's perfect for and going to be absolutely amazing, and I'm sure. But the actual productions and the designs are not linked in any way.
Well, we should probably do a kind of commercial announcement here. We're talking a little bit about the 10 by 10 New Play Festival at Barrington Stage, which is running now into March. We talked about it last week, but if you want information about it, and you really need to book tickets in advance, I understand that this weekend's set of performances are close to sold out. It's barringtonstageco.org. And Barrington Stage has also announced its upcoming season, which includes Into the Woods by Stephen Sondheim and premieres of other plays and musicals. Kind of a rich season, so do check their website out. And Alexander, you have a website people can go visit, so tell us about that.
Sure, yeah, it's just my professional website. It's just my name, AlexanderSovronsky.com, SOVRONSKY. It features some clips and some music of mine and a little photo gallery. You can kind of see me, with all my different faces and costumes on. And a way to kind of contact me if someone out there is interested in, booking me for some theater work or a bar mitzvah or whatever the heck people do these days with active musicians. But, I found that, the best thing I've ever done, actually, if there are any young, professionals out there, that the best thing I've ever done, actually, was to really spend time and money to create a website, because the ability for people to find out who you are instantly and have a relatively accurate portrayal of your talent and of your work immediately at the click of a finger is vital to the way this business works. Especially, theater many years ago was a lot slower. There was an audition process that required showing up in person and giving them your headshot and resume in person and doing everything in person. And even though those things still happen, now the business is so much faster. I've held auditions via Skype, and people send me their emails and their resumes via email, things like that, and it's so much faster. So to be digitally connected in that way is really important. So if you're an actor out there or a musician that doesn't have a website, go grab one.
I do in my day job. I do marketing and public relations, and I don't always recommend websites. I took my personal website down because the combination of LinkedIn and my Facebook business page worked really well for the kind of work that I do. But what I like about your website is it is extremely well designed. It's not only eye-pleasing and ear-pleasing, but for somebody like me, when I'm wearing my journalist hat, to get immediate information and get a chance and stuff, people should take a look at it and create something with the work that you did in mind. It's just great.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I think it depends on the kind of work you do. I mean, for the kind of work that I do, a LinkedIn page and Facebook doesn't give me the opportunity to stream music or to have video links as much as more readily accessible, or have downloadable resumes. And so it's a question of what you're trying to market, and knowing kind of what you are selling and kind of understanding what best platform would be to accomplish that. But yeah.
You've accomplished so much and in such a diverse way, being able to be an actor, being able to compose music, being able to arrange it, being able to do sound design and stuff like that. In a priority term, is there one element of your career that excites you the most, or is it just one whole big thing that excites you?
I think it's a lot of the whole thing. I mean, the thing that I've always really enjoyed is I'm a musician first, and then I'm an actor, and then I think after that, probably I'm a sound designer. But all of it really just comes from the same place, that I want to tell stories with everything that I am. I think that when we get into theater, we want to be able to tell the story. And sometimes people have the ability to tell a story with their bodies and their voices, and that's where it ends. And some people have, they can dance and they can sing and they can, and the palette expands. But I think mine is one where I like telling stories with everything that I can bring to the table. So sometimes I certainly get a chance to do all of that together, like in Indecent, where I got to write the score and also I'm performing it live and I'm acting in the show as well. And that's like this lovely combination of all the things that I love kind of coming together in this one perfect storm. But, Mother of the Maid, I'm not on stage at all. I was just designing the music and writing it. And, So I think the general changeability of the natural flow of this kind of a career allows for every job to have different requirements. But I really love the fact that I can do all these things and I can bring it all to the table, because it just allows for so much more variety in the work that I do. And I don't know, I've been doing it for almost 15 years now professionally, and I'm not bored yet.
And I would assume with the versatility of the stuff that you do, that you and your ability to, like with a website, getting it out there and Skype and all of that, that you can live wherever you want.
Well, yeah, that's a huge advantage, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
So, are you based in New York now and live here, or living here more and working in New York?
My wife and I live in the Berkshires, and that's it. I mean, we moved up here about 5 years ago from New York. At that point, I'd already done a lot of work for the theaters I wanted to work at on Broadway and off Broadway. I kind of had a list of some of the theaters I wanted to make sure they knew who I was, and I did all that, and I felt really good about making kind of my mark in New York, at least to start, as a young actor and musician. And I said, I think I'm good to walk away for a bit. And also, the life of an actor is one of a bit of being a gypsy. So it felt very weird to me to be paying New York rent prices for an apartment that I was hardly ever in. So, if I'm going to be coming home, not as often as I would like, but certainly between jobs, there's something about coming home to the Berkshires that is just unparalleled beauty. Makes me feel a lot better than feeling like, I'm coming home to a small studio apartment in New York City, cramped and trying to find parking, and it's just the crowded subways and everything. Coming home from a job and coming home to the country sounds a lot more my speed. So
and it's probably
we're just here for right now. Yeah,
I would probably say the Berkshires are a better place to raise that puppy, because the puppy can run in the woods and all that much better than the streets of Manhattan.
Yeah, absolutely. And we found a really beautiful community up here of fellow artists and friends, and it's a really rich community of people. We live in the Pittsfield area, which is the only city in the Berkshire County, and it's tremendously vibrant with new businesses and young artists and young people starting their own business, their own groups and theaters and all sorts of things. It's a really exciting place to be, and there's a lot of really great friends that we've made in the area. At this point, I can't imagine living anywhere else.
Alexander Savronsky, thanks for joining us this morning. All best with 10 by 10 New Play Festival opening. It's actually running now. The official opening is Sunday afternoon. If you want tickets to that, you better get them quickly. barringtonstageco.org. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on Sunday. And
you too.
It'll be fun to catch up a little bit. And just let everybody know that next week on Artsbeat Radio, the entire hour will be devoted to the big broadcast coming to Mount Holyoke, and that's on Saturday, March 2nd. We're going to leave you today with a little music from the musical The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which was based on a Charles Dickens play. Dickens died in the middle of writing it, and Rupert Holmes wrote this musical version. And based upon how the audience votes, who done it, it's a kind of a thriller. There could be up to 8 or 9 different endings. So we're going to leave you with a little bit of music from that. I'm Mark Auerbach. Our chief engineer this morning is Peter Coles. We're at Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM WSKB. We'll be back next Friday with another edition of Artsbeat Radio.
I dress for evening theatre, the swellest gent in town. I sit for all to see me in my stall. But when I put my feet up and let my braces down, you'll find me in an English music hall.
I love the grandest opera from Mozart to Bizet.
No French composers sometimes have their goal.
And damned if I can figure a single word they say.
But I'm fluent in that good old music hall.
Where else?
Where else?
Can you have murder and romance and give you by a snap?
Where else?
Where else?
Can one trade insults with a band while a pint's within your hand and a lady's in your lap?
I'm fond of chamber music, I take some every week. I sit there fighting sleep until I fall. But when I'm feeling wicked, I step from chambers bleak and stroll me down the garage music hall.
Where else?
Where else?
Can you have song and food and drink and wink a rakish eye?
Where else?
Where else?
Can you have portions of King Lear with a tankard full of beer and a plate of shepherd's pie?
I burn my candles brightly, oh dear the things I see. And should someday the angels come to call, I'll say no thanks to heaven, that's much too good for me.
Just fly me to an English music hall.
Where I am never lonely.
And never act my age.
Where I can chat with friends if I don't like what's on the stage.
I give you one and all. And English music. For several weeks
Support for the community